we have with us Pallab Bhattacharya ji, former ADG Assam, man who was also the chairman of the Assam Public Service Commission, Major General Ranjit Singh, also Vice Chancellor at different universities, and Arun Kumar Sinha, AK Sinha, former ACS, Family Health and Family Welfare, Government of Uttar Pradesh, and also Additional Secretary, Government of Labour, Ministry of Labour, Government of India. The today's topic, General VK Singh is somebody who is going to be the chief guest. Hopefully, should be joining us because he's not on the WhatsApp. But nevertheless, we'll start the show. There are 3 more guests expected: Vikram Singh, Devdatta, former CEO, Noida Authority, and one more gentleman, Lieutenant General Apte, Brigadier Apte. So here we start. Opening remarks on Chitti Aayi Hai in the backdrop of the Sudan evacuation mission. There have been many such missions over the last 45 years, 40 years, ever since the Kuwait, thing that comes to our mind, very fresh, almost very fresh now, because in the last 1 year, we have had 2 such missions. Apart from the Corona COVID times, when there were probably the largest numbers of Indians who were brought back. Chitti Aayi Hai, basically an old song from one of the old movies called Naam, Hindi Bollywood movies, something which we kind of we don't want to trivialize the efforts of the soldiers, of the entire team which gets into such operations. It is just a way to treat things in a little lighter vein when it comes to such very, very sensitive global issues with implications which are diplomatic and having foreign policy ramifications. As of now, Sudan operation is underway. Probably the experts would speak more on the subject. We have Arun Sinha also, who was Secretary, Additional Secretary Labor or migration of people from one country to other for the purpose of bread and butter, career, money, is something which is again responsible for these kind of overseas people who fall in the trap of such unprecedented political or social economic situations in the far-off lands. And then it's the responsibility of the mother country to bring them back, which we have successfully done over the last few years. Arun Sinha ji, before I get to you, opening remarks from Major General Ranjit Singh, who is an avid speaker on subjects varied. Over to you, Ranjit Singh ji.
Thank you, Amiji. Good afternoon. Again, a very interesting topic today. Amiji, to quote few examples, really speaking, the biggest, I think, the lift was of invasion of Kuwait in 1990s, where 1,70,000, I think, people were evacuated. I think this is the Guinness Book of World Record. Good job done by the Indian Airlines and Armed Forces. I think thereafter the Op Mathri, that Nepal earthquake, if you remember, I think more than 5,000 Indians, then Americans, Russians, and Germans were evacuated from there. So that job also was equally important. Uske baad, Devi Shakti operation, that mission of Afghanistan, when Talibanis came, Americans ran away. It's the Indians who went there, and they definitely evacuated more than 800 people, including some Hindus and Sikhs, and 3 copies of Guru Granth Sahib. This is very important to note, in fact. It was in 2021. Thereafter, Operation Ganga, again, Ukraine-Russia war. This is the strong leadership of Amiji, there's no doubt. And that there was ceasefire, and the corridor was given, and 18,000 people, headed by General VK Singh, people were evacuated, mostly the students, those who are doing MBBS and all that. It's not only from Ukraine, the Poland, Hungary, Moldavia, Romania, and of course the Slovakia, etc. But major chunk was Ukraine and Poland, where General VK Singh was responsible. It was also a very good job done by the Indian government. Of course, it is the foreign policy. And even Operation Dost, this rescue operation recently, you mentioned slightly, Syria and Turkey. I think Indians were the first one to reach there. So therefore, India definitely takes a lead. Of course, Turkey annoys us in UNO, but still, India set an example. Let's hope Turkey comes to Mother Earth. And last is, of course, Operation Kaveri, Sudan, I think almost 2,000. Very few are left. I think most of them have been evacuated. So I salute the paramilitary forces and the army, there's no doubt, and the civilian setup. and they deserve this credit, definitely. And of course, the strong leadership and the foreign policy. Amit ji.
Pallab, the opening remarks from you, Pallab Bhattacharya ji, former ADG Assam, and somebody who was also heading the Public Service Commission of Assam, and somebody who has his folds all across the country. I'm sure you've had a lot of friends who worked at the borders, and especially Assam being one of the most sensitive, states in the country when it comes to handling border and migration issues. Definitely sure you can throw a lot of light on the kind of risks that are involved or the kind of responsibilities that come along with getting such countrymen back from such far off seas, especially in such turmoil as we can see in the country of Sudan as of now, just like the things that have been happening in the country of Russia and Ukraine. Pallab Bhattacharya, over to you.
Yes, actually, my knowledge about this subject is a bit limited in the sense that people from the army and the paramilitary forces are usually involved in these sort of operations. But I can say with pride that the Operation Dost, which was launched recently, actually, there the NDRF team was sent, and the NDRF DG was my batchmate at the time. So we came to know a lot of things from him, Silvardhan Singh. Now, these operations which are going on from year to year, actually 1990, actually, this Kuwait airlift, which our honorable speaker has told, about 170,000 people were airlifted and brought. So this is a huge experience. So over the years, we have gathered a lot of experience, but I personally feel that our armed forces and the paramilitary forces, basically who are the main workers there at the field, they whatever we are learning from these various missions, and also at the same time our representatives in the countries, actually like ambassador or the high commissioner and all the stuff therein, actually I think we should develop on our this exercise which India has done really nice. And I think the government of India's policy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, actually there we will have to do a lot of things. And at the same time, I also want to add one more point, that in addition to these rescue operations, actually we are doing some very good job, like in the Major General has already told about the operation in Nepal, and now in and now that Operation Dost, actually these are also activities where basically we are rendering our help to those countries. So on all these issues, actually we should develop our expertise from our experience, and I hope that in future we can have a very good stature in the world community.
Okay, thank you, Pallab Bhattacharya, former AG Assam and chairman of the Assam Public Service Commission, who knows the borders pretty well. We have had opening remarks from Major General Ranjit Singh ji and also Arun Sinha to speak, but we've been joined by General VK Singh, our veteran, somebody who helped us build the Atmanirbhar series, who started with us 2.5 years back, without whose incomparable support and kind of motivation and encouragement throughout the lockdown periods, this entire series of Atmanirbhar that we ran and successfully ran, and now running the 2047 series, would never be possible. General VK Singh is somebody who knows the entire evacuation process by the back of his hand, a man who probably is responsible for the success of these operations over the last few years. Almost, ever since the Kuwait operations, we have been used to such operations. Last 3-4 years have seen many such, including the lockdown, getting back 60 lakh countrymen from abroad locations, and then the Ukraine crisis, wherein General VK Singh, along with his 3 cabinet colleagues, was sent by the Honorable Prime Minister as India's war horse for the purpose. General VK Singh, along with Admiral Robin Dhawan, were responsible for successful completion of the Yemen operation. He is also the minister in charge, Minister of State for Road Transport and Highways, Government of India. And General Saab is also the Minister of State for Civil Aviation. Both the sectors absolutely incredibly linked to the country's growth and prosperity, and they are the shining stars in the 70-odd ministries of the government of India, led by Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Damodar Das Modi. Over to you, General VK Singh, the great war horse, the great soldier that we have, and now the Minister in the government of India. First show on the road to 2047 series, which will ensure that we drink the halal just like Shiva did during the Samudra Manthan as per our mythological history, and then lead us for 25 years so that we can reach Ram Rajya or the utopian state which we dream of. General VK Singh, over to you.
Amit, first of all, good evening to
Jai.
everybody.
Good evening.
Each one who's present here uh, is a professional in his own right. And let me say that the subject that you have chosen is very interesting. Let me start by saying that as a country, we have gained a fair amount of expertise and recognition all over the world with the type of evacuations that we have carried out. Secondly, our evacuations have been uh, considered examples to be read by many other countries. And I think our prowess in helping our citizens, wherever they are, has been recognized as something which is trusted both by our own citizens as well as by the countries in which these citizens go to. And we have had many types of crises. We have had issues like what Kuwait faced. It was a very large evacuation, had its own uh, downsides. Still, I think we did very well at that time. We have had evacuation from Libya. We have had evacuation from Lebanon. We have had evacuations from Iraq. We have had evacuations from Yemen. We have had all kinds of things, evacuation of our own students from Ukraine. At the same time, during COVID period, we ran the Vande Bharat flights to take our citizens from here to the countries in which they were residing and bringing our citizens from those countries if they were wanting to come back to India. A very large number of flights were done, uh, primarily to ensure that during this lockdown period, people who were stuck outside could come back home. Uh, Not a classical evacuation, but certainly an evacuation on humanitarian grounds where people could travel from India to India abroad and abroad to India. A couple of things which I would like to flag is no evacuation can be done without planning. And let me add a caveat to that. No plan survives the first bullet. It is when you land out there that you realize that what you have planned may not work because the conditions have become different. So what it needs is great amount of flexibility, great amount of resilience, great amount of preparation, and ability to ensure that you are able to improvise at that time. Look at what is happening in Sudan now. Uh, we have had to evacuate people from middle of the country, and we decided to use our air assets to take them out from there, where one didn't know whether the fighting or the fighting forces are going to allow us to do it or not. Many things happen, and therefore each evacuation by itself is unique. Each evacuation has its own dynamics, has its own situation, has its own environment, and the forces involved in evacuating are also different types. If you take Ukraine, we have had people who came on foot. There have been people who were provided buses, and people towards the end, the last batches that we took out came in train. all through a country which was at war. Now, it's a different story altogether. We also had to evacuate our students from China, but there the normal flights helped in getting them out of China during COVID period. They have now started going back to complete their studies. So all that I would like to say is, do discuss evacuation from this perspective, that each evacuation is distinctive. It, it has different dynamics. You can lay down certain principles and that is it. How the situation will pan out is very difficult to predict. And it requires resources of the entire government. It has to be a whole of government approach, then only it succeeds. It cannot be one department or the other. Till the time the whole government is not behind it, it will not succeed. And we have seen it happening in the recent times. As they say, the trust of our people has grown since 2014, that if they are in trouble, the government will come to their assistance to take them out to safety. Whether it was labor, whether it was some people stuck for certain other purposes, where there are issues with the employer, you name it. Government has been forthcoming in ensuring that our people feel safe. And that's a huge, huge achievement, where if you can instill that kind of trust in our people. I would also request that in your discussions today, do look at the type of difficulties that people face and the role media plays in it. A lot of times, the media has a habit of only concentrating on negatives, because you cannot provide everybody the type of facilities that can be provided. People's expectation is very much, and therefore the problem. I mean, I can only give you an example. I had during Yemen, we had put some people on a luxury liner, which we wanted them to come by that luxury liner. It would have saved us a lot of botheration. People didn't want to come by ship. They said, we'll only go by air. No media is willing to write about it. If you force people to do a particular thing, they will certainly write negatively about it. So the pressure of the media, the way it has to be handled, the way things are, what is the expectation of people? Do people really cooperate with you when they're in trouble, or they look for the first opportunity to find only good things for themselves? Now, these are many factors which I think can make the discussion very interesting today. With this, I will say goodbye to all of you, because I've got to go somewhere else. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thanks, sir. Thanks.
Sir, before you leave, a few interactions probably, then we can take it over to other guests. Sir, what would be the difference between an evacuation mission and a rescue mission?
See, when you say a rescue mission, it is when you actually are expecting trouble, or it is a rescue of a type where somebody has got stuck in Himalayas and you've got to take them out from that difficult situation. Evacuation generally is a word used when there's a large number of people involved, not small number. Rescue attempts are generally confined to smaller number of people.
And 2014, I mean, you said during the Sushma Swaraj era, when the Yemen operations, I think, took place, and you were responsible along with Admiral Dhawan to bring the entire people back from the war hit, place. I mean, tell me, what has been the progress in the last 10 years, approximately 10 years of the Modi, wherein foreign diplomacy is being tom-tommed about by the government of India? And do you think it has played a major role in the success of the operations of the last few years? And going forward, will be much better placed than we were over the last 30-40 years?
See, one thing which has happened is that as part of our foreign outreach and our own diplomacy, we are recognized better than what we used to be recognized. We have got more support from all 192 other members of the United Nations. We are I'm putting India as 193rd country. There are 193 members. So from all 192 members, we get support. And that's a big thing. Lot of times when you don't get a support, it becomes a problem. You take Yemen. Uh, the PM spoke to the King of Saudi Arabia, and we were provided windows in the operations that they were carrying out. They said, we will give you 2 hours every day. Well, at times we got 2.5 hours, at times we got 1.5 hours, but we got time when the air operations stopped so that we could fly in and fly out. You take what happened in Ukraine. We got a safe passage where hostilities during that period were seen as very low actions so that we could, in the areas where we could take our people out. Same has been the case all over. We went to South Sudan. Uh, we were able to ensure that when we went in, there was a quiet for at least 2 hours. So this diplomacy has helped. And this diplomacy has also helped in resolving issues. We had a major problem of our workers in Saudi Arabia. Now, if the relations were not very good, things would have been different. But we were able to ensure a much better deal for them and a much better manner in which we could take them out from Saudi Arabia back to India. So these last 9 years have been very, very good where the diplomacy and our foreign outreach is concerned.
See, Middle East, General Saab, I mean, first of all, I mean, Mr. Vimal Vakul is also there with us. You are probably cognizant of his presence because he has been there with you in a few shows, former CMD at TCIL. And then we also got Arun Kumar Sinha, former Additional Secretary, Government of India, Ministry of Labour, because he will be throwing us and taking us through the vagaries of the trade when it comes to, preempting such issues, who go for work purposes outside the country. Now, my question emanates from that particular issue. General Saab, can't we preempt and then aren't advisories issued in timely manner to the citizens working abroad so that these kind of exigencies are narrowed down to a major extent?
The advices are given well in time. People don't adhere to them. We as Indians are used to only moving when something falls on our head. That is the unfortunate part. So you will see that people don't move. Advisories are given, people start looking as to what they can extract from the government rather than how they can cooperate with the government. That's the unfortunate part of this issue.
And when it comes to the future, I mean, when you talk about the future, how well prepared we are as a country, because there is a lot of danger lurking from a world war perspective as well. I mean, you think that if something like that breaks through, I mean, or something like that of similar nature comes across, we will be in a position to handle such crisis because, these are small operations, but if it's a world war issue, how well prepared are we?
I won't go into the issue of world or something like that, but all I can assure you is, as a country, we are well prepared to evacuate from any part of the world. And I'm saying this with full confidence that today, as working environment that has been created, as what we have learned from the various evacuations that we have done, we have got a very good expertise in ensuring that we are able to harness our resources and evacuate people from anywhere that we think.
And how much would you rate Mr. Narendra Modi's leadership in terms of such evacuation processes?
Very high. I mean, he gets involved right in the beginning. He doesn't wait. He doesn't wait.
Sir, I have one question to ask, sir, if it is possible. Is there any laid down doctrine actually for such eventualities? Actually, till now, as far as I know, there is no laid down doctrine.
There is no laid down doctrine.
Eventualities, sir.
There is no laid down doctrine. See, the problem is we have never taken this as part of something where you lay down a doctrine and say, okay, we will adhere to that. But I think where the MEA is concerned, they have listed certain things which they have learned over a period of time as guidelines for themselves when such a thing happens. So after that, it is how a situation starts working. Every situation is unique, and every situation requires many improvisations. Basic principles are known, but there's no written doctrine. There's no nothing which you can pick up and say, okay, now I have to evacuate. I've got a book to guide me.
And just like in the case of the last show that we did on fugitives, extradition treaties make things, streamlined to some extent. You are saying what you are suggesting is that we do not have any such treaties with foreign countries for such evacuation processes in the times of such exigencies.
Then the treaties of friendship, and you can't say, okay, if a need comes, I'll evacuate my. Everybody knows about it. That if there is a requirement to, after all, we have tested that in COVID period also, when we started, uh, running flights which were not as per the air agreements. They were they were separate envelopes that were created. Okay, 1-to-1. Your citizens I'll take back. My citizens you bring back. So these are all, they work out very well if the relations are good, if there is harmony in our thinking, and if we enjoy each other's trust.
Which one would you rate as one of the best one, probably the best one in terms of the evacuation processes? Because Kuwait saw almost 2 lakh people coming back safe, not a single one left, and that too at a time when the US warships or the US ships or the US aircrafts were allowed the refueling from the Indian territories. So you think that despite such kind of action, India got back all the 1,70,000 citizens? Do you think that could be rated as one of the best diplomatic successes of the last 30-40 years?
See, evacuation cannot be judged by the number of people whom you evacuate. Evacuation is judged by the complexity of the situation and how you were able to tackle that situation. And that is what makes evacuation look good or bad. If you have been able to take out people without any heartburn within the community which is being evacuated, with everything being done properly, without functioning under any pressure, and you bring them back safely in the shortest possible time, it is a good evacuation.
Sir, I think in the short span of time, you answered from the horse's mouth as much as possible. And as always, one can only say you've done great for the country. Hopefully, this is not for which we need to praise you again. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Jain,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank
Jain,
you.
sir. Jain, sir.
Jai Hind,
Thanks.
Jai Hind, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you.
over to now Vimal Vakluji. Vakluji, you are a wonderful speaker on subjects varied. Take us through your take on this evacuation process, kind of exercise which is happening quite frequently, and it is a drain on the entire country. So what do you think is the, kind of a magic, kind of a pickle for this kind of an issue?
Well, after General Saab has described the whole thing, I think there's not much to speak about it. But I would like to mention here that while he was speaking, I could, as a project management professional, relate to the whole thing. Because it is a project management process which gets involved. You have to plan first what are the various components, what are the local conditions, what are the risks involved, how can those risks be mitigated, and all those details, who are the various stakeholders who are to be involved. These are all part of a project management task. And of course, Pallabji had mentioned, is there any sort of guideline or some sort of,
Doctrine.
doctrine for this? So in my opinion, the doctrine is the project management. And of course, every project is a different project, as General Sabha was also mentioning. And in this condition, I mean, if the broad guidelines within, say, the Ministry of External Affairs or whosoever ministry is involved in the evacuation, they have broad guidelines. So a team of people can always sit down and fine tune the basic structure. I think that will make the task faster, easier, and there will be lesser surprises. As General Saab was mentioning, that on reaching that place, you realize that you had missed on something. But if it is, we give a project management perspective to it, and nothing can be missed because everything, there are about 43 project management processes which are involved in this, which are involved in a project. So you can't miss on anything. But yes, the domain knowledge about the country and the type of complexity that you are involved in will definitely be needed to fine tune your whole task. And rest, I mean, if it's, you also mentioned about which is the best evacuation, and General B.K. Singh mentioned that numbers don't decide in evacuation. True, because if you do a project successfully, then the whole program as such, which is a repeat of those projects, is not a big challenge. And that's what I wanted to say.
I'll take it now over to Arun Kumar Sinhaji, former Additional Secretary, Labour Government of India. Why do we fall in such precarious situations as a nation when advisories are issued, Arunji? And what all can the government of India do to ensure that going forward, this doesn't become a hackneyed exercise being repeated, and every year there is something happening somewhere. And we as Indians, educated Indians, now we are going places for the search of employment. What do you think is the way forward? And why do you think such precarious situations, despite advisories, keep happening as a nation to us?
Thank you, Aminji. It is very good to hear Pallabji and Honorable V.K. Singh ji, Bimal Baklu ji, their views, and it is very interesting also. Mr. Baklu, he explained the similarity between project management and this particular evacuation process. And Pallabji talked about documentation and doctrine. You said that advisories, generally they are not given the adequate attention by the people who are affected later on. That is true, because I don't have experience of evacuation and other things, but as an administrative officer, we also saw that in case of natural calamities like flood or other situation, similar thing was there. People, they are bound by their belongings and other things. It's very difficult to uproot and move to some other places. In fact, once evacuation is done successfully, then other issues like rehabilitation and handholding, other things also is there. So that hitchcock is there, that perhaps thing will turn better and I may not have to move. So the answer lies in continuous communication. And in fact, there should be prior such interaction that if such situation arise, then you have to take a decision, a hard decision, and move. So persuasion is the only way out for that. Regarding this evacuation,
इसमें just एक
Yeah.
मेरा छोटा सा सुझाव है. There is a small, because this particular discussions that we're having is to probably also come out with a few subtle suggestions which can be forwarded to the authorities concerned, like you, people like you who were in decision-making chairs. Like, these operations have a major costs. Now, economy is what drives these people from their motherland to far off places. So can we not have a kind of a cost benefit analysis when it comes to creating a kind of a package for such people who have to come back in case of such lurking possibilities of danger, and trying to compensate them for a particular period so that it's easier for them to go by the advisories in time instead of waiting for the axe to fall on them. So ultimately the government of India has to spend money. The problems will multiply more than enough, multiply exponentially, if the advisories are not adhered to, and henceforth the costs involved would also multiply exponentially. So better not, why don't we create some kind of a package, and the communication is given out to the workers from the External Affairs Ministry who go out with a particular employment contract, that in case of such advisories, this is the kind of packages that their government has in store for them if they come back in time. And if they do not adhere to such advisories, probably they miss out on the package, as well as also fall susceptible to the risk of losing even their own lives. So what is your take on this?
Amitji, I think you have given a very good idea that we should not only react. In fact, we should be proactive and it should be, as Mr. Baklu was saying, that it should be considered, and then some instruments, like you see, insurance. Insurance is an instrument which protects you many things. So perhaps this idea needs to be developed by people, that so that it is not right now. It is one way that government has got the, even General Sabha is also mentioning that people want to extract. That is not good. So it should be win-win situation for both government also and for the worker also. So this should be developed and seen that if somebody is going out, then like when we go to say for abroad, you have to take health insurance, and then because that country is not going to spend on you. So such instrument can be developed which can be used for this purpose also, and that will reduce the financial outgo also, and people will also cooperate because they also know that they are also part of it. So
So
it's a
as of
very
now,
good suggestion.
as of now, there is no such policy from the government of India, Arunji?
I'm not aware about this thing, like because perhaps right now in the labor ministry or such things are not there.
So this is probably a wonderful opportunity from a public account perspective for all the insurance agencies and insurance companies, I guess.
Yeah,
Wherein they can have a collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs for all the people going abroad. And then that kind of insurance can take care of such exigencies and calamities. And the government can also, save on a huge amount of drain of resources. And also, probably till now, we have had very successful missions. What if a few missions fail in the future? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, now I go back for the closing remarks. Straight away, I start with Pallabji. Closing remarks, sir.
Actually, I will, since the armed forces actually and the paramilitary forces, including, I'm talking about Navy, Army, then Air Force, actually, they are the main responder in most of the cases. So I think probably India training program, actually that must be there. This should be incorporated by government of India somehow, that if such an operation takes place, you will have to go there. So regular training is required. And since one of the main stakeholder is the foreign diplomatic missions, I mean the envoys or the ambassadors, etc., I think proper training of those people, actually, like who are the people living in my jurisdiction in this particular country, what they are doing, all their details, I think that is there. But even then, regular interaction with them from time to time, so that if such a situation arises, they can immediately respond to. And my third suggestion will be there should be a doctrine. That is what I personally feel. Standard operating procedures should also be there. And we should develop the intelligence also. Like if something happens, actually it does not happen all of a sudden. It happens in course of time. So during this period, actually our foreign diplomatic mission, they should gather all the intelligence regarding what is growing up. And similarly, our ministries here in India, they can also take up and supplement their efforts. I think these are some of the suggestions which I can give.
Take it over to Vimal Vakluji. Vakluji, your final closing remarks on the subject.
Of course, if we have time, I would like to share one experience we had on this evacuation business. Well, in 2013, we had a big project in Sierra Leone as a part of TCIL. And suddenly there was an outbreak of Ebola in Western Africa. And it was a big challenge. Now we had 200 people of our people working over there. And now immediately there was a demand from all people that they should be evacuated. And at that particular point of time, I'm talking about 2013, there was no such thing as, a mass evacuation, because very few other companies had people over there. We had. So it was primarily our responsibility. So when there was a demand that we should bring back people, so I said, okay, let's do that. There is no alternative. And, we, while transporting our people to Sierra Leone, that time we paid a fare of about 25,000 rupees or so per person from India, and bulk fare. And when we approached the airline for evacuating our people, commercial airline, that time the number of airlines in Sierra Leone also, they got reduced because there many airlines canceled their flights. So they started quoting 5 lakh rupees per person for evacuation. So, when we did a calculation, it looked like we'll be running into a loss. Instead of earning anything from the project, we'll be running into major loss because of this reason. Apart from the penalties which we would have had to pay for not completing the project. Now, what happened after that was, I said, okay, if there is no alternative, we can't help it. But then the project manager there, he said, I have a suggestion. I said, what? He said that all local people are able to live here as we are living here. So there is no reason to panic and leave, because Ebola was deadly disease. He said we have to maintain, like we did in the case of COVID, we have to maintain some sort of, you can say, follow a protocol. That's all. And so far as the people are concerned, the 200 people, he said that we are paying a daily allowance of almost $35 per person. Let us increase this by another $15-20 per day. And then when we ask people to respond to that, 199 people decided to stay back, and only one person came back. So sometimes that panic type of situation also develops when there are such problems, as we have seen recently in Sudan also. But maybe there are way out also, and when people know that they are getting some incentive, maybe they don't even need to get evacuated. This is the other side of the story I thought I'll share with you. Thank you.
Probably this is exactly what we were driving upon as one of our policy suggestions, is to that economic is what drives them out. Economy is what can bring them back in timely manner and save the government not only from the commercial, ramifications, but also from the political kind of embarrassment or global embarrassment, or even internal embarrassment, and also from a backlash from the media and the citizens at large, in case one of such mission fails miserably, which can happen in case there is a major calamity like a world war, which could break out anytime, that we keep praying that should not happen. But any which ways, as a former CMD, we'll be closing now. Former CMD of a public sector Miniratna company, you people have people working in offshore projects. How do you tackle such situations? Vakuluji, in short, please.
Hey, I mean, I have just given you a case study. I mean, it's from the same area. I mean, of course, there was a mention that there should be an insurance, but insurance does not cover always this type of contingency, because it's treated as a like a force majeure condition. And even insurance companies will raise their hands under such conditions. That is the trouble, because you can imagine the case study I mentioned.
Force majeure, what exactly? Basically, it's a natural calamity that is associated with force majeure. Unforeseen circumstances.
When things are beyond the capacity of anybody to take any action.
Yeah, it's basically linked to natural disasters. It is not linked to man-made disasters.
Yeah. Now, the case I mentioned about Ebola, it's also a natural disaster. Because,
Yeah.
of course,
Here what we are discussing is man-made disasters, which in the case of Sudan or such evacuation missions is primarily not a force majeure. It's a simple case of a calamity which is man-made, and henceforth the insurance companies, I'm giving them an opportunity to take note of it in case it is found relevant by the decision makers. I'm sure they'll be running to the PMO to get a policy initiative done on this particular aspect, wherein such workers are covered, so that economically, with the advisories being issued, the the returning of these workers or the migrants who work in these countries become much more easier and in a much more timely manner, and saves the government from the cost ramifications as well as from political, social, and media backlash. Now, final remarks from Major General Ranjit Singh. General VK Singh was very clear that every calamity evacuation process is different, but at the end of the day, an evacuation process is an evacuation process, and the do's and don'ts have to be kind of SOP wise aligned with the case at hand. Major General Ranjit Singh, what is your final take on evacuations and the evacuation processes? आपका माइक बंद है रंजीत जी, माइक ऑन करिए, विल क्लोज द शो.
Okay, can you hear me? Sorry. You can hear me. What General VK had said during this Ganga, Russia-Ukraine war, it was very difficult to take out the students and the people from so many countries, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, etc. But equally important was the Devi Shakti, Afghanistan, Talibanis. Though they evacuated 800 people, but they found it very difficult to take out people from Talibanis. But luckily, Indian leadership, there's no doubt, though there's no written law, guidelines, they make guidelines that time only. They react as per the situations, but they evacuated people from Afghanistan also. However, the biggest evacuation was from Kuwait, 170,000. But maybe the difficulty was more in case of Afghanistan or Nepal or even Ukraine, where the ceasefire was declared from both the sides for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. So therefore, depending upon situation, Amitji, I think the government has done a wonderful job, and I think they'll keep doing it in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjit ji. Thank you all the panelists that we have with us, including the gentleman who joined pretty late, Asit ji. Any which ways, Vimal ji, Pallabda, Asit ji, Arun ji, and we also have, Arun Kumar Sinha ji, the former Additional Secretary, Labour Government of India. Thank you so much, sir. Look forward to meeting you again soon. Labour coming up Sunday next time. Road 2047 series. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jai Hind.